Hello everyone, and welcome to another Jurassic World Dominion video by me, Jeremy James Prutchick. I know it's been a while since my last upload, and even the one before that, I've just been really busy being a dad to my wonderful daughter, who I love very much. Now I also realize that it's been well over a month now since Jurassic World Dominion was released in theaters, and since I consider myself a lifelong Jurassic Park fan, as well as being a person who's dedicated his YouTube channel to Jurassic Park videos, you might be curious to hear my thoughts on the new movie. So what did I think? Well, it was okay, I guess. I had a fun time, but after seeing it, I had a lot of mixed feelings about it. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to share what my first thoughts and impressions were of Jurassic World Dominion. Now before I get started, there are a few things you should know. The first thing is obviously a spoiler warning. There are going to be spoilers for Jurassic World Dominion in this video. Second thing is that this is not going to be an in-depth technical review of every frame of the movie. These are just my first thoughts and impressions after seeing it on opening night. What I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. So it's going to be kind of an informal video. Now I tried to recall the movie as best I could while I was writing notes down for this video, so if I screw up and say something wrong about what happens in the movie, feel free to let me know in the comments. And finally, this is going to be an audio-only discussion, so check the timestamps in the video description if you want to hear about a specific topic. So without further ado, here are my first thoughts after seeing Jurassic World Dominion. I'll start off with the positives, the pros, the things I enjoyed about this movie. Thankfully, there were enough of them for me to have a good time and enjoy myself, and I'll start off with something that I think made this movie really special, bringing back the original cast. I thought seeing the original cast come back again was a really nice treat. They still had great chemistry together, just like they did in Jurassic Park. And the way they interacted with each other in certain scenes, you can kind of see parts of their old characters come out again. I'll give you an example. There's a part in Dominion where Malcolm said something about eternal nothingness, and then Grant just looked at him and was like, "What?" It's like that scene in Jurassic Park where Malcolm asked Grant if Ellie Sattler was available, and Grant shut that right down. It was kinda like that in Dominion too, and there were a couple of scenes like that. I like the way the original cast was used in this movie because of the way that their storylines tied in with the new cast, which I'll talk about later on. For now, I'm gonna focus on the main stars of the old cast. And I'm gonna start off with my favorite character of all time, Alan Grant. I absolutely loved seeing him again after all these years, and Sam Neill did a fantastic job with his performance. Overall, I was pretty satisfied with what they did with Grant's character. I loved his introduction when it showed the dig site and he makes a little speech about how science is a way to pursue the truth. What a great way to reintroduce him to the movies. Now, I already talked a bit about this in my trailer discussion video a while back, but I'll quickly say it again. Seeing Grant at the dig site and seeing how passionate he still was about his work made me feel really good inside. I was genuinely happy for him. He was still the brilliant, curious, and hard-working paleontologist we all know and love. And that's the thing about Grant's character that I think Dominion did really well. Because Grant was used a lot differently in this movie, and I mean that in the good way. Dominion didn't focus on the action side of his character that we've seen before in other movies, particularly Jurassic Park 3. I mean, he still had some action-packed moments in Dominion, and they were fun, like the Dimetrodons in the caves, but Grant was primarily used as a scientist in this movie. There's lots of times where it seems that Grant is very hesitant about being where he is, like when he's at Biosyn headquarters, and there's also times where he's unsure about what he's getting into, like when Ellie Sattler meets him at the dig site. But during all these times, Grant's also curious, and this is a perfect reflection of his passion for his work, as well as his desire for discovery. A perfect example of this is when he's flying over the Biosyn Sanctuary for the first time, and he looks out the window, and he says with almost childlike excitement, "Is that Dreadnoughtus?" And that kind of reminded me of the first Jurassic Park movie when he saw the Brachiosaurus. He had a couple moments like that in Dominion, like when he saw the Giganotosaurus. And I really liked that when Rexy and the Giga were about to fight and the people were stuck between the dinosaurs, Grant says that it's not about us. And he was referring to the fact that the dinosaurs were essentially fighting for dominance. Again, Grant was used more as a scientist in this movie, while still having some occasional action hero scenes. Grant was very well balanced in this movie, and I think the movie brought great closure with his character, especially when he rekindled his romance with Ellie Sattler. Speaking of which, I want to talk about her next. When we last saw Ellie Sattler in Jurassic Park 3, she seemed to have settled down with her family while working on a book on the side. But in Dominion, her kids have since grown up and gone to college, and Ellie got right back in her field. And since being back, she's become one of the most respected scientists in her field. I think she said she was a university teacher at one point. I can't quite remember. But in Dominion, Ellie was used in a similar role that she had in Jurassic Park, where she was the brilliant and intuitive scientist, just like Alan Grant. And I loved seeing her again, too. She had great scenes with all the characters, especially Claire. When it came to the past meeting the present, I think Ellie and Claire had some really good scenes together in particular. Ellie had this one line in the movie that I really liked. It was when she used an axe to cut the power lines, and she was like, "Damn, that felt good." She is still a badass, and I really liked how her character was given closure as well, continuing her work and rekindling her romance with Alan Grant. She had great chemistry with Grant, but also with none other than Ian Malcolm. What I liked about Ian Malcolm in Dominion is that he acted like the same Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, full of wisecracking jokes, odd comments, and scientific knowledge. He had a bit of that in The Lost World, but his character had a more cynical attitude than before, so in Dominion, we got the Jurassic Park Malcolm back, if that makes sense. I liked his scenes because when he talks, you want to listen. You want to hear what he has to say, because he says it with such passion and credibility. And he reminded me of the Ian Malcolm from the Jurassic Park novel. I got lots of novel vibes from Malcolm in this movie in particular. Jeff Goldblum nailed this performance and never missed a beat with his character. I also liked how he was able to have a more successful heroic moment in this movie. Here's what I mean by that. If you remember back in Jurassic Park, he distracted the T-Rex with the flare, but was badly hurt and almost died. But in Dominion, he took a burnt locust and used it as a torch and threw it in the Giga's mouth, and he didn't get shredded as a result. But yeah, I really liked what the movie did with Malcolm. He was witty, he was funny, he was Ian Malcolm. What else needs to be said? So now that I've talked about the old characters, it's time for the new characters. I'm going to talk a bit about the new cast and their role in the overall story for Dominion. I'll start off with Owen and Claire, and the reason I'm kind of grouping these two together is because they essentially had the same role in this movie. They were parental figures for Maisie. They unofficially adopted Maisie and took care of her, but tried to shelter her from the outside world because people suck. And I get it. The world is an ugly place sometimes, but there's no way you can stop someone as bold and adventurous as Maisie. And after Maisie was kidnapped, Owen and Claire went into full parent mode, just like the Buck and Doe T-Rexes from The Lost World. Owen and Claire both had the same goal and the same destination, to rescue their daughter, and they both went through it together. Yeah, there was a brief period when Owen and Claire were separated in Malta, and even after the plane went down, but they were in this together, and I liked how they were so determined to get Maisie back, literally traveling across the world to find her. Owen and Claire were both real badasses throughout the movie. Owen had some really cool chase scenes with the Atrociraptors, and he even strangled the Dilophosaurus with his bare hands. And Claire had some cool chase scenes with the Atrociraptors too. Now this might sound a little bit weird, but even though Owen and Claire are considered the main stars of the new characters, in this movie I consider them more side characters or supporting characters, because Grant, Sattler, and Malcolm I think really stole the show. But Owen and Claire still did a good job too. Now I want to talk about Maisie. Now, as a character, Maisie was well written. She was still the brave, adventurous kid we saw back in Fallen Kingdom, just a little more grown up. The only thing I didn't like with Maisie was her backstory, which I'll talk about later on in the video. But again, as a character, Maisie still had that desire to explore and still loved dinosaurs. And she was a little badass in this movie. There was a brief scene where she was twirling a knife, and even when she was kidnapped, she didn't let anyone push her around. I remember there was a part where she literally gave Dr. Wu 2 middle fingers. That was funny. I also liked how Maisie had a bond with baby Beta. I liked how she asserted herself and commanded Beta's attention, sort of becoming an alpha to her, just like how Owen was with Blue. And I especially liked how Maisie got to meet Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler in particular. They had some really good scenes together, as did some of the other new characters that I want to talk about next. Out of the new characters that were introduced in Dominion, I think Kayla and Ramsay stood out the most for me. They were well written into the story, like how Kayla was a cargo pilot that just so happened to get caught up in this whole mess, and Ramsay was a spy trying to take down Biosyn. Both these characters had good qualities about them. Ramsay was brilliant and clever, and Kayla was a tough, no-nonsense badass. And like I said with Maisie, both Ramsay and Kayla had good chemistry with the old cast. They were a nice addition to the movie. Now there are some more things I want to talk about with these characters, but I'll save them for another time. But since I'm still on the subject of the new cast, I even liked how they brought back other new characters like Zia, Franklin, and Barry. Now, Zia wasn't used very much in this movie, and that kinda sucks given her background. But Franklin was used much better in this movie compared to Fallen Kingdom. He had more of a supportive role rather than just someone who was just there. And I like how Barry was given more of a starring role in this movie. He played a big part when it came to exposing the black market in Malta and trying to find Rain Delacourt. It was good to bring him back again. So to wrap up this section, I really liked how the stories of the new characters came together, how they merged with the stories of the old cast, and how we got closure on all their stories. Owen, Claire, and Maisie are still one big happy family, Kayla's starting a new life, and Ramsay's focusing on making things right after the Biosyn incident. The new starring characters were a welcome addition to the cast. They were well written. So yeah, overall, I liked how the new characters were used in this story. Another thing about Dominion that I really liked is something that's been featured in every Jurassic Park movie to date, and that's the use of animatronics and practical effects. There were a lot of parts in Dominion that used actual animatronics for some of the dinosaurs, like the baby Nasutoceratops, the Dilophosaurus, and probably my favorite animatronic, the Giga, which to me were all awesome. They just looked so real. I loved it. Dominion's use of animatronics is one of my favorite things about this movie, and in my opinion, it honored what made Jurassic Park so successful, by using actual props when they could. Yeah, there was some CGI in the movie too, and that's cool too, but I still prefer the use of animatronics because there's just a better sense of interaction when there's actually something there versus imagining something there in front of a green screen. Personally, like I said, my favorite animatronic in this movie was the Giga, and off the top of my head, the one scene with practical effects that I really enjoyed was the scene where Ian Malcolm was using the fire to distract the Giga. It looked really good. It looked good in a way that was different from CGI, and I definitely want to commend the filmmakers for their creativity here. And speaking of creativity, I want to take this time to transition into the final topic I want to discuss in the pros section, and that's the topic of dinosaur designs. I really liked the designs of the dinosaurs shown throughout Dominion, especially the new dinosaurs, and I think a lot of the designs took inspiration from actual paleontological discoveries and incorporated them into the dinosaurs in the movie, like how the Pyroraptor had feathers covering its body, and it had webbed feet, or even how the Therizinosaurus had quills. And the Morris Intrepidus looked really good too. So they sort of gave the dinosaurs an updated look in terms of accuracy. Now, I'm not saying that the dinosaurs in Dominion are 100% scientifically accurate, because they're not. In real life, there's hardly any Pyroraptor fossils that have ever been discovered, so it's hard to design an entirely new and accurate dinosaur based on incomplete fossil evidence. And yes, there's no fossil evidence yet to show that Therizinosaurus had quills, but that's okay. All of that's okay. The point I'm trying to make here is that the creative team went in a different direction and showed us another way to look at dinosaurs. They looked great. I really liked what they did here, and again, I want to commend them for their creativity. So, now that I've talked about the things I liked about Dominion, we're going to look at the other side of the coin now, and I'm going to talk about the things I didn't like about Dominion. And I hate to say it, but there were a lot of them. So again, check the description for the timestamps if you want to hear a specific one. But the things I want to focus on in this video are things pertaining to the overall story, not technical things like editing or sounds, etc. So I'm going to get started with the things I did not like about Dominion. The first thing I want to talk about is my biggest complaint of all, and that is the fact that they didn't focus on the idea of dinosaurs living in our world. This was the thing I was looking forward to seeing the most, and they hardly did anything with it. Fallen Kingdom specifically ended with the dinosaurs escaping into the world, and Malcolm saying that humans and dinosaurs are going to be forced to coexist, and I thought, oh my god, this is going to be huge. That was the big ending we were left with, and when Battle at Big Rock came out, it kind of gave us a little taste of what's going to happen in the future. Even on the Dino Tracker website, there are sightings of dinosaurs all over the world. There was so much they could have done with this. They could have shown how dinosaurs are actually struggling to adapt to the world, and how some people want to protect them while others want to destroy them. There could have been debates on dinosaur rights and dinosaur conservation. It could have been a thought-provoking movie in that regard. Especially since Fallen Kingdom missed out by not using the Dinosaur Protection Group that much, maybe Dominion could pick up the slack. And at first, it did. What the movie did with the news report in the beginning of the movie was really good. Right away, they talked about how dinosaurs appeared all over the world, and that there have been like 37 fatal encounters. They talked about how there's a black market for dinosaurs, and it even showed a poll saying that the majority of people wanted the dinosaurs dead. Awesome! We're off to a hell of a great start. But then it just stopped. The news report then said something like, there's still a few dinosaurs living in Big Rock National Park, but Biosyn rounded up the majority of them. And that's when I started to worry. Was the movie not going to explore this topic? Now, to be fair, we did get this really great scene with Claire, Zia, and Franklin breaking into the farm to rescue a baby Nasutoceratops while escaping poachers. That was awesome. I loved that part. Especially when the adult Nasutoceratops smashed up the poacher's truck. And also, the black market scene in Malta. Again, really good stuff. It showed some really disgusting things that people were doing to some of these dinosaurs. Like the pit fights, the trafficking. This is the kind of stuff I was hoping the movie would explore. And they started to show us that stuff, but these were kind of just segues into the main story of rescue Maisie and stop Biosyn's agricultural warfare. That was the story. It wasn't about the dinosaurs that got released into the world. It was about an evil corporation trying to control the world's food supply by using locusts. And when the topic of the free dinosaurs was brought up again at the end of the movie, there was another news report, and it said something like, the dinosaurs are still living in the Biosyn land, but it's a sanctuary now. Oh, okay. I mean, I like the idea that the dinosaurs are living safely, but there was no build-up to that. We have a beginning and an end, but no middle. Once upon a time, dinosaurs escaped into the world. Now they live in a sanctuary. The end. That's it. And yes, there were still some dinosaurs that were still roaming free, like the Parasaurolophus herd, the Sinoceratops in Africa, the Mosasaurus, and those shots were cool, but they were only used in a quick montage and not really given much attention. So, yeah, the thing I wanted to see the most, the thing that had the most potential for plot growth, was just treated like an afterthought. So on to my next complaint, and it kinda goes hand in hand with the first complaint I just mentioned. If the movie wasn't going to focus on the dinosaurs roaming free, what about the other ones living in Biosyn Valley, for instance? I mean, dinosaurs are the very reason we enjoy these movies, so surely they got the focus instead, right? Nope. This entire movie had a lack of dinosaurs in general. A lack of dinosaurs in a Jurassic movie. This is the same problem that Season 4 of Camp Cretaceous had. The dinosaurs in Dominion were an afterthought. Most of them were just in it for decoration. The Dreadnoughtus, the dinosaurs in the valley, they were just used for background shots. And the dinosaurs they did feature were barely used either. Like Blue, for instance. She was barely in the movie. If Blue is your favorite dinosaur, I can only imagine how frustrated you must be. We had all these dinosaurs with such awesome designs, but they were barely used. Most of what you see in the trailers is pretty much their entire scene in the actual movie. Like the Pyroraptor, for instance. What you see in the trailer is what you see in the movie, and that's pretty much it. The Pyroraptor roars, dives under the ice, swims a bit, and runs down the catwalk after Owen and Kayla. And that's it. Just the one scene. Same goes for the Quetzalcoatlus. Whatever you see in the trailer is all of what you see in the movie. It was only in the movie for a few seconds. Now, you may have heard me say before, quality over quantity. And that's true. I still believe that. I can be flexible and accept a lack of quantity as long as the scenes have good quality. But most of the dinosaur scenes in Dominion didn't have quality or quantity. Not really. I think the best dinosaur scenes were the Atrociraptor bike chase, the first time we see the Therizinosaurus, and the final battle with the Giganotosaurus. Those were good scenes. But overall, there were hardly any dinosaur scenes in this movie, and hardly any kills for that matter. Dominion wasn't really a movie about dinosaurs, and as a Jurassic Park fan, that hurts. Okay, so now that I've talked about that, I want to move on to the next problem I had with the plot, and that's the whole origin of Maisie, and how it felt like a last-minute rewrite or a retcon. Now I want to make this clear. Maisie is a great character, both in Fallen Kingdom and in Dominion, but it's her story that I have a problem with. Here's what I mean by that. In the beginning of Dominion, The news report said that there's a global search for Maisie because she's a human clone, and she's intellectual property, and she needs to be researched and stuff like that, and I thought, okay, sure, that's fine. This could be a good part of the story. And then we learned that Maisie isn't a clone in the way we originally thought. Maisie was actually created asexually by her mother, Charlotte Lockwood, and not by Benjamin Lockwood. Charlotte was still Benjamin's daughter, but she died from illness shortly after Maisie was born, and not in a car crash like Fallen Kingdom had us believe. So with that said, this makes the whole plot twist in Fallen Kingdom pointless now, and that's the problem I have. Fallen Kingdom had us believe that Benjamin Lockwood, the former partner of John Hammond, was so devastated by the death of his daughter Charlotte that he cloned her and kept it a secret. Now, Fallen Kingdom didn't use Benjamin Lockwood very much already, and this retcon in Dominion makes him even more of a wasted character now because most of his story is just a bunch of crap at this point. Why would Benjamin Lockwood essentially put a huge target on Maisie's back by trying to hide a secret that wasn't even true? He didn't clone Maisie, so why would he hide the truth about Charlotte from Maisie? It makes no sense. Charlotte was a brilliant scientist. She was amazing. She was a great character. She should be celebrated. And I think Ellie Sattler even said that Charlotte wanted to have a child more than anything, and when Maisie was born, she loved her very much. She even went as far as curing the same disease that she had that ended up in Maisie to give her the life that she couldn't have. And Maisie was proud to learn the truth. Why didn't they just do this from the beginning? Because like I said, this retcon basically cancels out the plot twist in Fallen Kingdom. So would that make this a Fallen Kingdom problem or a Dominion problem? Maybe it's both. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to my next complaint, there's something else that doesn't seem to matter anymore, and that's Camp Cretaceous. Now keep in mind that these are my thoughts after seeing Dominion on opening night, so Season 5 wasn't out yet. So for the sake of conversation, let's pretend that Season 5 hasn't happened yet. But back to my complaint, there were no connections between Camp Cretaceous and Dominion, except for one. Sort of. You could say that Cash's mind control chips were sort of hinted at. You know, when Ramsay told Grant and Sattler about using microchips that send signals to the dinosaur's brain, but he didn't actually mention Cash or Manticore by name. He just talked about using microchips that coincidentally did something that we saw in Camp Cretaceous. So other than that, we got nothing. And I'm really upset about that because Colin Trevorrow specifically said that Camp Cretaceous will tie into Dominion. So going into this movie, I was looking forward to seeing how they were going to tie in with each other. And no, the Barbasol can doesn't count yet, because again, when Dominion premiered, Season 5 wasn't out yet. So again, let's pretend we haven't seen Season 5 yet. And while I'm still on the subject of Camp Cretaceous, there's one other thing we didn't see in this movie, or rather, someone. Bumpy. Bumpy was nowhere to be seen in Dominion. Yes, I was hoping to see Bumpy in Dominion, even if it was just a quick 10-second cameo just to show us that she's alive. I would have been perfectly fine with something like that. But we got nothing. Now, before Dominion came out, there was a lot of marketing material on the Dino Tracker website of Ankylosaurus sightings, suggesting that Bumpy is alive and was seen by people. There was a picture of a blue and yellow Ankylosaurus, but the lighting was so bright it blocked out the horns. If we did see the horns, then we'd know for sure if Bumpy survived because of her obvious head bumps. So by not showing us the horns in the picture, and by creating this doubt, it made us curious. And then there was that shot in the trailer of the Ankylosauruses in the field. Again, we didn't see its face. And as far as the trailers go, that's fine, because I thought, okay, maybe they're not showing us the full thing yet because they're going to save the rest of it for a surprise appearance. That's fine. That's what trailers are supposed to do. To build suspense. To not show you everything. So they specifically went out of their way to not show us anything in the marketing, only for them to not even follow through with it in the actual movie. And again, these are my thoughts after opening night, so let's pretend that Season 5 hasn't happened yet. But what's even more frustrating about this is that Colin Trevorrow said in an interview with Collider that Bumpy could be alive. But that's still not very assuring because there's no confirmation of it in the actual movie. She could be alive? Well, where is she? Now, I'm paraphrasing his next statement here, but he also said that Dominion is about dinosaurs being displaced and trying to find a home, and that we as viewers want them to be safe. And I agree. These dinosaurs are characters. We want them to find peace. We want them to find a home. So why didn't we get that with Bumpy? Bumpy could have been the tie-in from Camp Cretaceous to bring the movies and the series together, but we didn't get that. In the meantime, I guess we're just gonna have to take Trevorrow's word for it that Bumpy's alive. Hopefully they'll make a deleted scene for the Blu-ray release or the extended cut, but if not, Bumpy's fate is an off-screen retcon at best, and I am not happy with that direction. Again, let's pretend we haven't seen Season 5 yet. Okay, I have 2 more complaints with this movie. We're almost done with the bad stuff. I want to briefly talk about a character who I was very curious to see how his story would end, and that's Dr. Wu. Before I saw Dominion, I would sometimes think to myself, is Dr. Wu gonna die? Is he gonna die like how he does in the novel where he gets ripped open by a raptor? But Dominion did something different with Dr. Wu and gave him a redemption story. That's fine. I liked that he had a redemption arc, but I didn't like how it felt so rushed. Like as soon as we see Dr. Wu, he's already tormented by all this guilt and regret. But what happened to make him feel that way? He was a much different character in Fallen Kingdom. He was smug, he was cocky, he was full of himself, he felt invincible. He didn't care about getting mixed up with Mills and making more hybrid dinosaurs. But now he's with Biosyn and is now realizing his mistakes. But how did he even end up with Biosyn in the first place? I just feel like there's something missing in between. I'm okay with the end destination, where Dr. Wu redeems himself by using science for the sake of good to fix the locust problem. But I feel like we're missing something before that. You know what would have been a really good idea? If Dr. Wu said something like, "Someone once told me that true innovators make the world better, not worse. And it's about time I listened to them." Of course, this would refer to Season 3 of Camp Cretaceous when Brooklyn called out Dr. Wu. That would have been a great way to build on Dr. Wu's redemption arc, as well as tie in Camp Cretaceous with Dominion. Alright, hang in there guys, we're at the last complaint I have with Dominion, and that's the fact that there were too many plot holes. For a movie that's supposed to be the end of the Jurassic era, there sure were a lot of plot holes in it, and not the kind that leave things open for future installments to explore. These were the kind of plot holes that came from disorganized storytelling. For example, what happened to the Carnotaurus and the Allosaurus that escaped the black market in Malta? Are they still roaming the streets? Did the army show up and kill them? Or were they relocated to the sanctuary? And what about the other dinosaurs in the black market? Or what about the Atrociraptors that Santos set loose? I could be wrong, but I think there's still a few of them left. Like, I think the only one that actually died was the one that fell out of the plane. And on that note, what about the JP3 Velociraptors that were seen on the Dino Tracker website? Where did they come from? Didn't Mills say in Fallen Kingdom that Blue was the last of her kind? The Dino Tracker website is considered canon. How did Dr. Wu come to work with Biosyn in the first place? There are still lots of questions without answers, and because of all these plot holes, Dominion didn't really feel like a conclusion. I didn't feel like I got the full closure I was expecting when it comes to the story. So now I want to wrap up this video by giving my final thoughts. Overall, I had a fun time at the theater and I enjoyed myself. It was actually my first time going to a movie theater since the COVID-19 outbreak happened. But after I got home and the initial excitement wore off, I had a lot of mixed feelings about the movie, and I still do. I certainly don't hate this movie. I like this movie. It's fun. But I certainly don't love it either. The movie was just okay, and that's about it. It was okay. It was better than Jurassic Park 3, but still, I feel that there were so many things this movie didn't explore that I thought it was going to explore. Even in the advertising for this movie, and on some of the merchandise, there's slogans that say things like, "Dinosaurs in our world." But again, the movie didn't really go into that. I was really excited to see this movie, and I had such high hopes for it. But after seeing it, I kinda just felt like, it was okay, I guess. And I feel terrible for feeling this way. I don't feel proud about my overall opinion of Dominion, and sometimes I wonder if it's my own fault. Did I set my expectations too high going into this movie? Was I crazy to expect to see more dinosaurs around the world? Or was I stupid to hope for a quick Bumpy cameo? I don't want to sound ungrateful or entitled, and I certainly don't want to sound like one of those impossible-to-please movie critics either. I don't want that, and I really hope I'm not coming across as any of those things, and if I am, I'm sorry. I am grateful that this movie was made. I appreciate all the hard work that went into it, including the actors, the director, and the designers, just to name a few, and I certainly appreciate all the great things this movie has going for it. It's got creative dinosaur designs, a great use of animatronics, and bringing back the original cast and using them well. This movie does have good things about it. With that said, though, I can't lie and pretend that everything about this movie was good and I wouldn't have it any other way and I'm completely satisfied. I wouldn't be staying true to myself if I did lie. Maybe you agree with me on some of the things I said, or maybe you don't. Either way is totally fine with me. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion about a movie. You, me, everyone. I just feel that there was so much great potential for this movie that they didn't go through with. So now for my rating. How would I rate Jurassic World Dominion? Well, based on my first impressions after seeing it, I would probably rate this movie a 5 out of 10. So in the middle. Maybe some of my thoughts might change the more I watch it, and I will watch it more. It's just that my first impression of Dominion is that it's just okay. It's got some great things about it, but also lots of bad things about it. And in case you're wondering, I'm not going to rank the Jurassic movies here. I might save that topic for another time, whether it's in a video or a community post, but I will say that out of all the Jurassic Park movies, I'd probably rank Dominion near the bottom. Jurassic Park 3 is still the worst one in my opinion, but Dominion's probably just above it. I had a fun time and I'm grateful for the movie, but there's still lots of stuff to think about, and lots more to talk about in the future. And one last thing. I heard there's going to be an extended edition of this movie coming out soon, so maybe there'll be some deleted scenes or something that might make the movie better, and I'm actually looking forward to that. We'll find out soon enough. So there you have it, folks. Those were my first thoughts after seeing Jurassic World Dominion on opening night. What did you think of Jurassic World Dominion? Talk about it in the comments and have some fun. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more Jurassic content, you can find lots more of it on my channel. See you next time.